All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships podcast. And today, this is a really cool interview today. And I'm like, Tony, I can't believe it took us. You are interview number 77, and yet, Tony, if you'll recognize this if you hear his voice. As soon as you hear his voice, he is the one who helped me record the intro and the outro for this podcast. So first of all, Tony, thank you for that. I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect person to help with that. And I really appreciate that. And welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm honored to have you here. So I'm trying to think, you and I originally met, I don't know how many years ago, but it was in Genius Network is where you and I met. And we just hit it off. We just totally hit it off. And we've been friends ever since. And you are one of those people that I just have always looked up to and admired. And it's just, I really appreciate the friendship that we have, the relationship we have. And I just love all that you do because you're making such a big impact in this world. And what I'd like to do is just kind of start off by having you share a little bit about, what you're working on, who you serve, what motivates you to do what you do, and just kind of give everybody an idea of like who Tony Grebmeier is.
Man, thanks. I appreciate it. It's interesting. I want to say we probably met 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It just seems like it was yesterday because our relationship is always growing. And I think that's so powerful too for a relationship is you got to give to receive. And so many people like, hey, why don't I get a phone call from that person? Well, I'm like, when's the last time you reached out? Stop waiting for everybody and to make that phone call. And you're just really good at keeping that relationship alive. So I want to honor you for that first and foremost. And who am I? I'm just a average guy with some above average dreams who really had an interesting first, I'll call it 36 years on planet Earth. And then at 36 years, kind of woke up to some stuff that I thought, hey, you know what? I want something more for my life than where and how I was living. And so I'd just say for the last, 13 plus years of my life, my head's down. I run a company with a childhood friend called Ship Offers. We're based out of Colorado, recently just opened an office in Nashville. We serve entrepreneurs who kind of have an idea, want to launch a physical product in the health and wellness space. We help to kind of make that happen, ship those products and services out for our clients. And along the way, I realized I went to a lot of events like Genius and other masterminds, et cetera. And I was always coming back with a bunch of notes, on a bunch of binders and just different paper from people. And I started realizing, hey, you know what? What happens if I collected my thoughts and put them together in a little handy kind of like journal or a notebook, but that was user-friendly for an entrepreneur. So I set out to kind of build something called the Be Fulfilled Journal and to kind of just unpack our thoughts from when we go to events with actionable items about kind of creating goals, tasks, and things that we kind of want to work on for the future. And so a little over 5.5 years ago, I sat down and started working on a journal, and we've released 2 different versions of a journal, one for people who are recovering from a bad relationship. Maybe somebody in their family's got cancer, maybe they're in drugs and alcohol and they're recovering from that. So I got a Be Fulfilled Recovery with a fellow Genius member at the time, Anna Davis. Then just my Be Fulfilled journal has been around. And then up to maybe the last year and a half, I wanted to do something in the digital space. So now my Be Fulfilled journal is going digital and it'll be in the App Store, pretty soon. And I'm excited about what that will unlock because it's going to be something hopefully you and I can chat a little bit about today, which is being an entrepreneur can also be a very lonely place. You can isolate really, really easy. And I know my previous, 36 years of my life, I found myself as an entrepreneur being very isolated and very depressed. And since unlocking something that was not available to me at first, which was creating massive amounts of accountability in my life. And so in the new journal app that we're launching as an accountability feature to really help entrepreneurs have accountability and do it in such a way where you can share, but you don't have to have everybody in all parts of your business, but you can share authentically about how you're really doing and know that the people you're going to invite into your world to be your accountability partners have your best interest. So I'm doing something to help us, you and me, the listener who is on their journey in life that can get locked up in their head and feel like the world's out to get them. When reality is the world isn't out to get us. the world's waiting for us to do something amazing with the talents we've been given. And I want to help unlock that for, entrepreneurs today and in the future. And I got 2 books that are being written this year. One, again, to go down kind of what I call the archaeology phase of every entrepreneur needs to spend some time digging from what worked and didn't work in their past, and to create the astronaut vision for themselves. What would they like to test drive now? Maybe float around the idea. And then when they're ready, how do they build that by being what I call an architect, and really creating a foundation to stand and really create something massive in the world. So it's framework that you can use in any area of your life. And then the other book that I'm writing is for my 2 boys, my 51st life lessons on planet Earth. I'm going to give it to them on my 50th birthday this year, just as a way to say, hey, you know what? Your dad's still here. If there's some things in here you want to learn and want to read about and ask, feel free, because I wasn't able to do that with my dad. Certainly wasn't able to do that with my grandfather. And so I thought, what a cool way to give back than to give something to my kids that's from me, about me, that maybe they didn't know, and that it would give them an opportunity. And they may not even read it for the first several years. But my goal is that one day they'll be left with a bunch of insight of maybe the way I was around them, maybe how I was sometimes spaced and checked out, but also that I ultimately loved and cared about them. So, and, and on top of all that, my number one thing that I do, I'm sober and clean and spend as much quality time as I can with my wife. We've been married 24 years and we have 2 boys, and I spend all my time, if I can, just trying to figure out how to keep that stuff together and not fall out apart.
Well, like I said, you have just been somebody that I have always looked up to. And, I just want to touch on something, because it's on the wall right behind you there. And you can only see part of it in the frame, but there you go. That picture of you, and we got this mutual friend of ours that you and I also both have a ton of respect for, and touch on that really quick.
Yeah, the person you're mentioning is Sean Stevenson. I met him at Genius. He was a big part of Genius and Joe's life and yours, and everybody's there. And Sean came into my life at a time where I didn't know I needed a coach and a mentor so much. And we started working together for a short period of time. And then I still kind of remember the phone call one day. He's like, you know what? Why don't we just be friends? Like, there was something magical there. Love the guy. Think of him often. I have a picture up in my office to remind me of what he helped me to unpack for myself, was how to get out of my head. I used to say, if I get out of my head and in somebody else's heart, I'm in a much better place. And he helped me to unpack one day. He's like, Tony, if you could learn how to get out of your head and shift to your heart, then you can go help somebody else. Because most likely, if you're trying to help from your head, you're in your wallet and you're trying to get something. But if you're shifting from your heart, you're coming from a place of compassion and understanding. And then, our relationship really grew fast, and I spent a lot of quality time with Sean. And then I received just a horrible phone call one day. Sean was actually supposed to be at my house and in Colorado the day that he had passed, but changed some things around. And I was just super devastated. Just the guy held so much space for me in that 3-foot container. And he was really not just myself. When I came to be at his memorial and his life service, I just realized he did this for thousands and thousands of people. You want to talk about leaving a legacy, try to live a little bit of your life like Sean Stevenson, like just give, serve, love, laugh, and don't take yourself too damn serious. As I used to say, I'm in this container, but when I get to the next portion of my life, this container is just what I have here on earth, but then I won't have that anymore. And it always really helped me, no matter what I'm going through, the ailment or whatever, man, just keep pushing forward. Like, you can sit in your pity potty all day and just, be like, oh, life's crazy or bad. But reality, he helped us. Like, life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me.
Yes.
And that was so big and so powerful. So yeah, just somebody I think about daily. He wrote the foreword in my Be Fulfilled journal. So I'm honored that commitment. Funny stories around somebody like Sean just came into my life at the time I needed him. And I only met him because of a guy named Vinny Fisher, had him at his event. And I literally fumbled my words meeting him for the very first time. And I went out and I kind of cleaned up my mess a little bit later with him and Mindy. And, you know, it was just one of those things, you know, you meet somebody and it's like it's just instant contain. It's like, you just feel like you've known the person for your whole life. And that's what it was with Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, when we just care about people, and especially care about the people that we serve through our businesses, you know, there's no hiding that. There is no hiding that. And when you talked about, you know, coming from your heart instead of your head, which, yeah, you're right. Your head kind of gets attached to the wallet, you know, but your heart doesn't do that. Your heart never does that. And that's a rare thing, because, you know, the general population is not coming from their heart. They're coming from their head. They're concerned. What are other people going to I mean, I've been guilty, totally guilty of like, whoa, what would other people think about me if they knew that, you know? But when we do just come from the heart, man, we just make such powerful connections with other people. And that is huge, Tony. That is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you lead with your wallet, it does fill up, right? It fills up with maybe some money temporarily, but I've also found in my career that it'll leave you empty and non-fulfilling, right? And then if you lead with your heart, two things will happen. Not only will you feel good, you'll make some money along the way. So you just have to find the little angle, what I just gave you, which is how you lead. You know, they say how you do anything is how you do everything. So I just choose to lead with my heart today. So it's not a money play for me when I jump on a podcast or go strike up a business venture or a deal. I really kind of say, and maybe I'll get laughed at for it, but I've often said, you know, I'd rather be friends with you than do business with you. And if business is something that comes from being friends, that's awesome. And people go, well, why would you want to do that? I'm like, because I actually want to be friends with the people I do business with. Like, I actually want to break bread with them, spend time with them. I don't want to just have it as a transactional relationship. That's not fun for me. So, you know, in our business, I'm actually friends. You know, I'm texting the CEOs of this business and we're talking and we're meeting up and we're doing things, traveling, et cetera. Like, that's what I want. Yeah. You want to do business with people you like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've always not always, I've used that as a litmus test for a while now. Is, you know, would I invite this person into my home for dinner with my family and I? And it's a real simple litmus test. And quite honestly, if they don't pass that litmus test, I'm like, why would I do business with them? You know?
I like that. That works too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is pretty awesome getting to do business with people that you like and that you want to spend time with.
Well, you like doing deals with people you like. You want to do more deals with people you like, right?
That's right. Okay, so let's shift gears just a little bit here. And I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Tony, I'm just really excited for you to be able to share your experience around this and just honor somebody who's had such a profound impact on your life and on your business.
No, thank you. I mean, I got to give first credit to my wife. I mean, I got to tell you, she's up there at the top of my who's changed my life for the better. She's definitely been one of them. But meeting somebody in Colorado by the name of Kevin Cohen, who was introduced to me by just a mutual friend. I took a phone call from Kevin one day. I still remember I was at a Panera in the morning meeting somebody else, and I was in line and I got that phone call from him. And you're kind of trying to do life. You know, I'm trying to get my breakfast. I had ordered some food. I'm waiting for it. The phone rings. I'm kind of in line listening, but not really paying full attention. And then all of a sudden he said something to me like, hey, why don't we just get together and we'll just get some lunch and we'll just chat and see if we can't help one another. And I just said, bam, that was it for me. You know, really, it wasn't anything major. We got together and he said something in one of my first maybe 3 or 4 sessions, kind of just meeting with him. He says, I think you're stuck. I said, what do you mean? He goes, man, you're just working all the time. You got a great business. You're doing great. He's like, but you're behind the desk and you're too talented to be sitting behind the desk. What would it look like if we got you to some events? And I was like, events? What are those things? I said, I haven't been to events since I was in radio. And he goes, yeah, these masterminds, workshops, conferences, et cetera. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, I think I'd been to some several years earlier, the Natural Products Expo out in Anaheim. So I said, sure, why not? And so he introduced me in 2013 to traffic and conversion up in San Francisco. And I remember I sat in the room like I did in school. So Kevin, where do you think that was? Front or in the back?
For you?
Yeah.
Well, knowing you now, I think it was front, but
back then it was the back. I was sitting yes, maybe I was supposed to be in that room, but I was so wanting to be out of that room because I was so overwhelmed by, I don't believe Roland was there. It was Perry and Ryan, and they were interviewing William Shatner on stage. I met Andy Huson for the very first time. Chad Hamza, like for the very first time. I met a lot of these people for the very first time. Will Vasquez. I met these individuals because Kevin helped me to get out of my element, which was just work behind the desk, make phone calls from there. And so Kevin introduced me to his world. And by the end of day 2, we had taken our company name from I5 to a colleague at work, business colleague said, hey, what do you think of this name? And I tested it. I beta tested it on like 5 new people that I met. And I said, hey, we've been called I5 for, at the time, 12 plus years. I'm like, what do you think if we change our name to Ship Offers? And everyone said yes. And like, I literally came home from San Francisco and we changed our company name several months later to Ship Offers. And I remember it was because of not only just one thing, it was getting me out of my comfort zone, then to get me in front of people where I was like-minded. I didn't look at any of these individuals as people that I couldn't relate to or didn't have anything to offer, wasn't trying to sell, I was just trying to learn. But it wasn't until I heard what William Shatner said that it pulled everything together for me. And William was basically up on stage and he was talking about his Brown Bag Wine Club. This idea that he had thought, he was the pitch person for Priceline and knew him from Star Trek and TJ Hooker and all these other TV shows. But he was like, imagine sitting around with a bunch of your friends, having a wine bottle and a brown bag. It's open. Nobody knows what it is. And you're just having a conversation and you're just talking. Well, I don't drink. I didn't drink then. But I really related to what his positioning was. What happens if you just sat around and talked and you didn't have a need? You just wanted to have a conversation. Well, isn't that how most relationships really flourish? You just get around, have a great conversation. And I can't be in a room if it's not going somewhere. Like if the conversation's putting people down, check me off the box. I won't be in that room. If it's not serving to make the world a better place, check me off the box. I'm not going to be there. So the conversations today, I still have most of those friends. And I really remember, I just talked to Kevin by text 2 days ago. So all these years later, he played a vital role in my life, became a business consultant for our company, really introduced me to just a wealth of new people in the industry. Through meeting Kevin, unlocked a bunch of relationships and partners. So he's one of those types of people that have really kind of changed the position. I didn't know Vinny Fisher, by the way. But Vinny and I compared notes, and I guess I wasn't in that session when he won a big award at that event, but he was there, and we didn't get to meet for about another year or so later. So that's why it's so important for me to just say Kevin Cohen, hands down, was a guy who changed my business trajectory. I don't know, 1,000%.
So you shared how, you changed the company name from I5 to Ship Offers. If you think about one or two of the other just big memorable things that have happened as a result of your relationship with Kevin, what is one or two other really substantial things that have transpired that would not have transpired if not for you and Kevin having that relationship?
Oh, Kevin, if you look at what our business was doing back when I met Kevin, we were maybe doing $4 million a year.
Okay.
We did $55 million last year. Relationships, is the fuel that builds the rocket ships that blast those things off. And so, Kevin was our business consultant. He helped inject policies and procedures and things that we weren't even thinking of. at the time, just three guys just trying to run a business and didn't really know this or that. But being at that event helped give me credibility in an industry that you need credibility in. And then he introduced me to a mastermind group. And then really he was the first person that I ever was in a mastermind with. So going into that mastermind, then I met a bunch of other people that really helped me to grow as an individual. I will say by meeting Kevin, because I've done this. So I've done this. This is a great exercise. If you ever, for your listeners or you independently, just open Excel spreadsheet and type in the first person you can think of that had just an impact in your business, and then list every person you can think of backwards and try to get to the specific moment or day. That was what I've been able to do with Kevin. And I've equated it at the time, about a year ago, I did it. Something about 175 interactions, business relationships, people from that initial kind of meeting Kevin.
That stemmed from.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. If I, in my life, Joe Polish was kind of that person for me.
Yeah.
And I met Joe in 1997, when at the time I had a struggling cleaning and restoration business, which he helped me completely turn that thing around. And then which opened my mind to, wow, if I could do that, what else could I do? And Joe and I have had this conversation, because I was like, man, I am so glad that I got into the cleaning and restoration business, because if I hadn't, you and I would have probably not met. And his take on that is like, yeah, Kevin, but you were searching, so no matter what you would have got into, you would have found somebody for you. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I'm damn glad you and I met. And if I think back, all of the people that have come into my life since meeting Joe, yeah, that would be a heck of an exercise, and that would take some time to really ponder and think about, but it would be a big number too, for sure.
Yeah, because it's in our master client list, right? Because I like at my business, right? Like you like to reward people and tell them thank you for the business, the referrals, et cetera. I just put it down and I was blown away. I was like, you introduced me to this person. This person was already, running traffic for 6 of my current clients, but I didn't know who the traffic person was. I barely knew the clients themselves. And then one thing led to another, right? So when you start drilling it down, you're like, oh, then that connection led to this person, and that person led to this business, and that person led to this business. And you're just like, whoa, like, how did that happen? Yeah. And that's one thing that we really pride ourselves here at Chip Offers is, I'm still serving the same types of clients and a lot of the same clients from, the very first event that I ever went to, back in 2013, 2014, so here we are 9+ years later or so. And I still work really, really hard to make sure that I still take and service those customers, just like I was introduced to for the very first time. And Kevin and I, it was like my brother. I mean, it's family, and we talk all the time. And that's what I think is super important about relationships and the power of relationships. I wasn't looking for something in return for my time with Kevin. All I was trying to do is add value to Kevin's life, and little by little, he's adding value to my life as well. And yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, when I say we were just working on a venture this week and it just went sideways, but it's not the end of the world. It just didn't work out this time, but we've been trying for a couple of years to see if we can make it work. So I'm always willing to listen to somebody say, hey, you should go meet Kevin Thompson. Who? You should go meet this guy. He was cleaning carpets. He had a business. And like, I'm using that as my example. I'm like, sure. And I'm not on the phone thinking, hey, what's in it for me? Yeah. Somebody told me that I should talk to Kevin. That's all I need to know. Right. That's all I need to know. I don't do anything while just sitting, waiting for God to tell me what to do. I do what's ever in front of me to be done, and I leave the results up. That's God's job. Like, God's just telling me, hey, go here, talk to these people. And one thing leads to another. And I haven't been disappointed. Right. And relationships are everything, man. I think you and I were talking not too long ago. It's currency for me. It's the most valuable currency you'll ever exchange. Exactly. I can't tell you how much it's worth, because for me, it's priceless, but it may not be. But the importance of it for me is that I like to exchange it with people who consider it priceless in return. And we really work really hard at building amazing relationships.
That's right. It's interesting because when I was starting this podcast, you and I had a conversation, and you were like, Kevin, the last thing the business world needs is another Me Too podcast. and you know, and I kind of had this vision of like, you know, that I wanted to just interview people like yourself so you could share this experience like you just did about somebody who's had such an impact in your life. And then for the listeners, you know, my goal was I wanted to just inspire and motivate them to place more intention on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and even profitable relationships in their life. And of course, the way we get to the profitable piece is we don't have to focus on the money piece of it. We get to focus on the relationship piece. And the revenue is the byproduct of that. And like you said, you know, the relationships are the most valuable asset we possess. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate you for the help and the insight you gave me when I was launching this podcast, because this has been hands down the most rewarding thing I have ever done in my life. And so thank you, Tony. Thank you.
No, man, I'm so excited that you're doing what I really think you were created to do. You know, you were created in such an inspiring way, because the first day I met you, I know where you were. I know exactly where we were at Genius. And I just said, you know, there's something amazing about this guy. And I don't know why. I just said there's something great, you know, and I'm meeting a lot of people for the very first time, but maybe 4 or 5 people out of that entire Genius for me, I'm still connected and friends with today. Right. So out of all of the hundreds and hundreds of people, you stood out. Maybe you're tall, maybe that's what it was, right? Maybe we're height, you know, in the same area, but there was something about you. And then just really just pouring and learning about you and what makes you tick and your family. And I think just the way you carry yourself and the show up, you know, they always tell you can spot it when you got it. And so there's something there, like I relate to you and I think you can relate to me in that regards. And so I was honored when I got a chance to talk to you about your podcast. I think you were a little bit stuck trying to figure out what to do. And then I gave through what I truly believe was like, we don't need another this. We need something that's amazing. And, you know, Vinny helped me kind of come up with, you know, the Real Stories Behind Success name one day, just on a phone call. Like I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and da 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 da. He's like, why don't you just call it Real Stories Behind Success? I was like, hey, that's it. And then we just called it that. So you need, people are like waiting for you to interact with them. Right. I was just, you know, and the thing that, you know, Vinny is really good and Kevin's really good. They're really great listeners.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good friend. That's a good person to be in a relationship with, somebody who's a really good listener, who's, you know, understands. Like, I think you and I were talking the other day and I could just see you were just a little off. And I just kind of said, hey, what's going on? And then we had a conversation, right? And you want to have that relationship with people, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is massive amounts of earth moves, and you can actually fill in the crack that's split apart, and you can actually work together to, you know, close it up and kind of move on together. And that's what I've been able to do with amazing people like Kevin and Vinny. Vinny's one of my dearest friends, do a lot of conversations, faith-based, just life-based, like, you know, and learned a lot of ins and outs. Roland Frazier's another one of those types of people as well. Like, you got to have a great foundation in life, because if you're stuck in your head and you're locked up in your room, then remember what I was talking about, why I'm building an app, is that you can almost pit the world against you, saying, you know, I'm no good.
Yeah,
you know, like
totally.
what I'm doing, you know, is falling apart and blah, blah. And you get a 4-minute phone call from somebody, not by accident. That phone call was intended. Somebody's heart was moved to call you, and you realize, oh man, that's what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I give, you know, gratitude and grace and say thanks, because, you know, man, we're one phone call away from our life changing, personally and professionally. Yeah. One phone call. Who do you need? Who do you want to be introduced to today? Like, is there somebody in your life? Well, call me if you're looking for something in particular, and I'll go through my phone and I'll introduce you to that person. And they say, well, what can I give you in return? I'm like, I already got everything I need. Zig Ziglar said it, I think, really best. You know, you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why when your podcast was coming along, I'm like, man, relationships, man, that's it. I told you to call your $1 billion relationships podcast, because I was like, million's too small. But then that was like the Sean Stevenson thing to me that really helped me as well. Sean one day said, you know, what's kind of a goal or mission for yourself? And I said, you know, just to impact one person each day. And he's like, man, that's great. And he was kind of joking when he says, he's like, I think you could do better than that. And I said, yeah, but Mother Teresa was one person. Like if I can just go out every day and affect change in one person, then that's good enough. Right. So it took me a while to realize that concept. And then when you didn't take billion and you went with million, I knew there was a reason. And the reason is like, y'all have to start somewhere. You'll have to start somewhere on your journey. So.
Well, Tony, thank you so much. I just really, I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship. For anybody who would like, you got a number of things going on right now. For anybody who would like to, you know, because I know some people are listening to this going, man, Kev, I love that Tony guy. I love the way he shows up, man. How can they find out more about some of the stuff you're working on?
Absolutely. Thank you. Just TonyGrebmeier.com.
Okay.
From there, I'll get you connected to what I do personally and professionally and everything in between. And if you're somebody who likes to follow on social media, I'm definitely a guy that will not make you feel like the world's coming to an end or you have to have a position on this or that. I'm just a guy who shows up to just serve and love, and all people really deserve a hug and love today. And so I just try to show up that way online as well. So I won't be somebody that you'll want to unfollow. I'll probably be somebody that you'll actually want to say, hey, so-and-so, you should go follow this person. He's fun. Yes. That's who I am and how I want to be remembered. That's the dash on my grave one day will be like, he loved people, helped people, and wants to be remembered as somebody who served.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Tony, thank you again, and really appreciate you, my friend.
I'm honored, man. Thanks, brother.